Dear Indian Noir, this is Arjun from Bangalore. I've got a story that still gives me chills every time I think about it. It happened a couple of years ago when I was working at an old government office near Carbon Park. The building had this eerie colonial vibe to it, like it held secrets from another time. One day, I woke up with an itch in my ear. I chalked it to some earwax or an allergy. By the time I reached work, it felt as though a tiny needle was relentlessly stabbing at the inside of my ear. I tried to ignore it, but it grew worse throughout the day. As the days passed, the sensation morphed into a soft, incessant squishing, like the revolting gyrations of a worm burrowing deeper, hungrily seeking its next meal within the confines of my ear. At night, it was the worst. I'd lie in bed, my head filled with unintelligible noise. Sleep became impossible. I visited the doctor, but after a thorough examination, he couldn't pinpoint anything unusual. He prescribed some ointment, but it offered no relief. I soldiered on, miserable and angry at my plight. One evening, I stayed late at the office to finish some paperwork. The building was eerily quiet, the only sounds being the faint rustling of papers and the low, rhythmic hum of the old ceiling fans turning lazily overhead. Suddenly, the sounds and the movements in my ear grew more intense, almost desperate. I could swear it was trying to tell me something. Strange noises echoed through the building, clashing with the maddening chaos already ringing in my ears. It created a disorienting symphony that made it impossible to distinguish between what was within and without. I remembered what my colleague Mr. Singh had mentioned about the building's dark history. A clerk named Ramesh Kumar had vanished mysteriously in the 1980s in the office grounds. Ramesh had been investigating sinister sounds coming from the office basement before he disappeared. According to the legend, a man who had been wronged by the bureaucracy cursed the office decades ago. The man, who was a black magic practitioner, could summon insects to torment his enemies, driving them mad with whispers only they could hear. Mr. Singh had laughed right after sharing the story, waving it off as just another urban legend. But the unease in his eyes told me he might not have entirely believed in his own dismissal. Could the curse have something to do with my ailment? The strange sounds grew louder, echoing through the walls like the steady drumming of distant thunder. I sat frozen at my desk, heart pounding. My blood ran cold as I pinpointed the source. The sounds were emanating from the basement. The stairwell door to the basement was just to my right, so it wasn't surprising that I had quickly pinpointed the unsettling noises coming from behind it. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to run, but some morbid curiosity compelled me to investigate. I felt foolish for allowing fear to paralyze me. After all, I was an educated man, not someone who should be easily swayed by superstition. I opened the stairwell door and stared down at the dimly lit flight of stairs that descended into the locked basement below. I stopped at the top of the stairs and stared at the basement door, my hand trembling as I gripped the banister. I could feel a cool draft seeping out from under the door, carrying with it a subtle buzzing noise that made my skin crawl. The air in the stairwell was thick and oppressive, carrying with it a faint, foul odor that made my stomach churn. I stared at the door, every nerve in my body screaming not to go any closer. My heart was pounding so intensely in my chest, I was sure it would burst open. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the other side of the door, as if something heavy had been thrown against it. I stumbled back, my eyes widening in horror, as I saw a spectral glow at the base of the door. A swarm of flies, thick and black, emerged from the crack between the door and the floor, spilling out like an ominous cloud. They buzzed frantically, filling the air with their menacing hum. Panic surged through me. I turned and locked the door behind me and fled. I raced back home on my bike, desperate to put as much distance between myself and that cursed building, my heart still pounding from the terrifying encounter at the office. But as I sped through the city, a sharp stabbing pain suddenly shot through my ears, so intense that I nearly lost control of the bike. It felt as if something was clawing its way deeper into my head, a relentless pressure that made my vision blur and my thoughts scatter. I gritted my teeth, fighting the urge to scream, and pushed forward, hoping the pain would subside once I reached the safety of home. It didn't. I ran to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. To my horror, I saw a tiny black beetle crawling out of my ear. It was unlike any insect I'd ever seen. I smashed it in a frenzy. I couldn't take it anymore. I took leave from work and visited a specialist who, after a thorough examination, found dozens of eggs lodged deep inside my ear canal. He removed them surgically. The doctor said it was unlike anything he'd ever encountered in his decades of medical practice. He couldn't explain how the first doctor missed it, or indeed the origin of the eggs. After the extraction, the issues with my ear stopped. But I couldn't shake the feeling, there's something sinister lurking in the shadows, waiting to crawl back into my ear. It did a real number on my mental health. I left my job and moved to a new city, hoping to escape the nightmarish memories. A few weeks after I left, I received a call from my former colleague. They had found human remains in the basement of the office building. Scientific tests confirmed they belonged to the long-lost clerk. He had been murdered and buried there. They doubt the police will ever crack the cold case.